My hoping is your marketing is going to add about 75,000 a week to our gross. So I'm looking to add. My hope is that we're adding about somewhere between 2 and 4 million from this marketing and the additional jobs that this marketing leads to.
So, again, I really appreciate you doing this with me today. I basically just want to hear from you from beginning to end how we met and kind of where your company was prior to us meeting and working together and where it is now and what you were looking to accomplish and how you feel about the whole thing. So let's start at the beginning. How did we come across each other?
I'm actually not 100% sure. I believe you did you reach out to me or did I reach out to you? I don't remember.
Yeah, so I was running, or I still am running Facebook ads for my own company. So you probably saw me on Facebook or Instagram and then filled out a form and then either you scheduled time on my calendar or
It's coming to me now. Actually, you had done probably some sort of retargeting campaign. My daughter was actually playing a game on my phone, and you know how these games sometimes have ads that pop up,
Mhm.
and then something popped up. Now she's 7, and she goes, "Daddy, this says roof." And so she wasn't sure what it was, and I looked at it, and then I looked at it for a second, and then I of course clicked it. And I think you had a video, and I kind of watched the video. I was like, "Well, it's kind of
That's
something
really
I've been
funny.
focusing on right now." So I did. I set up a time for you and I to kind of talk. Um, Came to what I thought was some fair terms, and happy with the results. So
What did we talk about that first time?
the first conversation we really kind of had was kind of you kind of explained to me what your process was, how you from a bird's eye point of view went through to target customers for me. And then the thing that obviously sparked my interest was the cost per lead and the quantity. Those are, two important driving factors. If you get one lead a year, even if it's $10, it's not going to move the needle in any way, shape, or form. So the cost per lead, what I believed it to be and what it's turning out to be, is a very reasonable thing for my particular industry. And then that first week we had, I think we both sounded a little surprised on the results in that first week. I think we both might have had lower expectations on what the results actually were, which is always, I'm a big proponent of under promise and over deliver. But I think you were even a little surprised, to be honest with you, and just kind of listening to your tone and reflection. So as for where we're at and where we are, you and I are still really new into this process. So nothing is really moved other than we have, in the last week, we have 9 appointments with homeowners to sit down and have a real conversation. So those were 9 at bats that we did not have, even if we, only closed 20% of those, that's 2 deals that we would not have had prior to you and I having a conversation. And my sales staff is pretty good at what they do. So I think we'll have a higher closing rate, but things are, they feel right, I guess is my best way. You're not getting sold on some pie in the sky dreams. You're not listening to a bunch of nonsense, because we all have that internal voice that kind of tells us this isn't passing the old back end test, to be honest with you. But everything you've presented has been 100% come to fruition so far. So I'm looking forward and I'm hopeful to a very long-term relationship here.
Awesome. So tell me about, how your company was getting leads prior to us working together.
So prior to us working together, obviously, don't know how long these videos will be online and how long you use them, but you and I got introduced in the midst of the COVID epidemic. So prior to that, my sales guys, for the most part, have banged doors, banged knuckles on doors and talked to homeowners and clover leafed and canvassed and these kind of things. And that's worked very well. We've built, a successful business based on that. When the COVID thing happened, anybody who's awake would have been nervous about their business. All the things that start going through your mind of like, crap, we may not write any business for a couple of months. And cash flow is a big issue in my business because we're getting paid on back end files months after we complete the work. So we need that new money coming in to keep the cash flow going. Had a, we'll call it a mastermind meeting with others in my industry, others in the home improvement world, whether they be, gutters or windows or roofs or, it's across all the spectrum. And we had run some split tests and realized that even in this environment, when people call the office, they were 100% willing to have a meeting and a sit down with my sales staff, because we were talking about virtual meetings and DocuSigns. But when we ran the split test, we realized that the close rates between the virtual meetings with homeowners on the home improvement world and a face-to-face were night and day by a factor of almost 10. Once I had that data, I realized I got to make the phone ring. So I started looking for some other solutions to make the phone ring. So obviously with my internet searches and things I've been looking at different websites, that's what probably had your software and, well, not software, but your analytics target me as a potential client and put your ad in front of me. So prior to COVID, to answer your question, we were knocking on doors. I mean, we did, we got stuff out in Facebook world and Google world and Bing world and Instagram, but we were getting, just a couple of calls per week, nothing with any real volume. And then literally you and I got involved and we agreed to move forward. And I think the ad went active at like 3 p.m. on a Thursday. I promised my wife I would get home early that day, which meant 5 o'clock. And we went out to go eat fairly early. So when you called me at 5:45-ish or 5:50, I was actually driving through a neighborhood with my wife and my youngest daughter, and we were just kind of looking at properties. And when you called, you said, "Hey, I like to just call my clients when they get their first lead." So literally 3 hours after this thing went active, we had our first lead. I had a big sales meeting. It's Monday. I do my sales meeting with my sales staff on Monday. So we had a conversation. I didn't promise them anything, but my hope right now is that we're going to be able to generate probably 1 to maybe 2 leads, somewhere between 1 and 2 leads per sales rep per day on a 6-day basis. So I'm uber excited.
Yeah. And then you could just scale that up by increasing the ad spend and
then it's just simple math. Yeah. Then it's just simple math. Our long-term goal as a company has been to open up in other markets, and I already knew how tough that was going to be coming into a new market fresh without any real reputation in there. But I've already got you in the back of my mind of I've got a way to kind of prime the pump, if you will. And once we get everybody trained in the way I want them to communicate and relay our message, we should have the ability to scale up and have people that are willing to have a real conversation with my sales staff.
That's awesome. So so when this coronavirus thing becomes a more normal part of life, so to speak, and people get back to living, you'll probably start canvassing in person again.
Oh, 100%. But the beauty of this is I've always wanted to set up a system where I had 1 to 2 appointments per sales rep, because what it's going to do is going to not, if you have an area that you're used to working and that's where you work, but if there's a neighborhood just for maybe just 1 zip code over or a quarter mile over, and you maybe had never been there as a sales rep for whatever reason, because you've been busy fishing in the pond you've been fishing in, what the lead allows, it's not just the 1 appointment that my sales rep is going to have the ability to sit down and talk with that one homeowner. The other ROI piece of this, or the other back end component of this, is that 1 appointment got a salesperson in an area that they may not have ever been in before for any reason. So it not only gives us the leads per day to have those opportunities, but it's the new opportunities that are going to rise from that lead. There's going to be additional leads that we self-generate because of the lead I get from you. So they're, and it kind of compounds. So if I have 5 salespeople, they're almost always going to work in the same area. 1 second.
Sure.
Dania.
Yeah. So what you were saying, I think, is really important, and that is that the leads you get from any particular source of advertising, really, not just what I'm running for you, but any leads and intros to a homeowner, is a foot in the door if you know what you're doing and you have a
Correct.
plan in place to get a lot more business by virtue of being in a general area and then using that to the best of your ability. So like, if you listen to the roofing gurus and read some books on contracting and getting leads and knocking on doors and stuff like that, you learn that if you're working on a house in a development or whatever, you go to the houses nearby. The closer they are to that house, the more likely it is that they are friends or know each other pretty well. And you say, hey, so-and-so, I'm right over there at your neighbor Jean's house, and we're doing their roof next Wednesday, and I just wanted to introduce myself. And that's such a warm intro that you wouldn't be able to make unless you were actually over at Jean's house. So that's what you're getting at.
We already know that when we put on a roof and we do a property, whether it be on the general contractor side or on the roofing side, we already know that on average a closed contract will lead, could be a week, could be 6 months, but every contract that we generate already leads to another contract. So if in the marketing that you and I are doing specifically, and that translates to 5 additional contracts, well, that 5 is going to turn into another 5. And then when I get those 5, well, I had the 5 that I'm still getting from you. So now I got 10. Now those 10 will turn into 20. And then 6 months down the road, those 20 plus the other 5 are going to turn into 25. And those 25 will turn into 50. And that's just the way it kind of works. So it really, theoretically, at some point, you almost would have to shut your advertising down if that number holds true, which means it's probably a good guess, and it's going to have some variance in there. But yeah, it's not just the one lead that I get from you; it's the additional work that comes from that particular job. So the job I get from you has helped pay for the lead. It completely justified it, and then I've knocked my lead cost in half, because I know that every job is leading to a second job. So we can get the lead cost down to a kind of an unreasonably low number, to be honest with you. But
yeah,
it can get fairly reasonable pretty quick.
Yeah, that's really cool. So how many salespeople do you have?
7.
7. You're looking to get like 1 to 2 leads for them a day, and they can
Yep.
call them back and schedule appointments, and that's kind of a good base. Make sure they have work to do and people to close.
Yeah, the plan right now, I'm in Florida, and we are starting to come up on the storm season. So we spent the last half year beefing up our sales staff, beefing up the presentation, and getting them ready for the onslaught of the storm season. So we didn't want to wait until the storm season and then start adding staff, because by the time they know what they're doing, it would have come and gone. So we spent the last half year bringing on staff. Actually have my newest salesperson started this morning. It's kind of funny. He relocated from New York when I was interviewing with him. Mm-hmm. And I go, listen, you're in New York. You're not even allowed to leave. And at that point in time, we had a 14-day mandatory they had to stay isolated for 2 weeks once they got here. I said, mm-hmm. So let's you and I talk in about a month or two once this thing kind of slows down. But he finally was able to get down here last week. The 14-day has been lifted in Florida. So hopefully will be my last guy that we need to add until after the storm season. And then we'll start adding some more. So yeah.
That's great. And what are your growth goals, like revenue wise, month over month, as a result of this new marketing?
I actually haven't had a chance to run some basic numbers, but I am hoping that we're looking at about my hoping is your marketing is going to add about $75,000 a week to our gross. So I'm looking to add, my hope is that we're adding about somewhere between 2 and 4 million from this marketing and the additional jobs that this marketing leads to, which is a pretty big number.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super exciting. And then you look, and then that's with the addition of the other markets, or that is going to allow for the expansion of your company?
No, that is going to be in this market. You and I right now have, if this is the market, you and I kind of have the marketing kind of isolated right now, so we can kind of control the data as you kind of dial it in a little bit more and we see the kind of the numbers. The intention is to expand it to my whole market. So in this particular location, when I say $2 to $4 million, I mean in this particular location, which is going to help me fund the next location. And it's going to also help, we've been working hard to add the right staff and the right people in the positions and kind of do, what's called a proof of concept in this market. Once I get it figured out in this market, then we can duplicate it in almost any market with some relative ease. I mean, every city's going to have, it's kind of like people. Every city's going to have its own personality, its own unique thing that's different there than here. Where you're at, there's months where you can't do any work because of the weather. Down here, we can, we had at an old company when I was the sales director there, the week of Christmas, we wrote 25 contracts. I mean, who does
Wow.
that? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Love Florida. That's awesome. And what, if any, digital marketing types of things, including lead purchasing through Home Advisor and that kind of crew of companies, had you done prior to us working together?
So I focus a lot on the insurance side of this particular industry. I have an old company kind of tested some Home Advisor type companies, and the success was kind of the same, but the salespeople didn't like doing those particular appointments because there was a lot of competition. It was just easier for them to go do a fresh knock on somebody's door and talk to somebody who's not kind of actively pursuing this. So it wasn't real. My salespeople, believe it or not, were saying, we'd rather not have these leads anymore. And when your salespeople say, we don't want those leads, you really need to listen. If we were doing straight retail, might be kind of a different ball of wax. I did a lot of Google ads through another gentleman, and my lead cost got as high as, I think I told you this before. One day I looked at it and I looked at what our closing rate was, and a closed deal cost me $1,000. I'm like, that's still profitable, but it's not profitable enough to justify doing that. That didn't make any sense. So when I talked to that gentleman, he goes, well, I'm not really good at analytics. I'm thinking, yeah, no kidding.
I remember that.
That made me start looking at some other avenues. I used some other individuals for some non-Facebook advertising, Bing and MSNBC and Instagram and some of these other things. And the two things compound. I mean, your volume is still by a factor of 4 to maybe even 5 relative to my other marketing platforms. I think the lead cost will be kind of close, but back to what I said earlier, if you get one lead at $10 a year, that doesn't really do anything. But if you get one a month from this guy and then, 20 a week from you, that changes, that moves the needle with some real movement, not just like a 1% change. But, my hope is to literally double our revenue because of our relationship.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're on about a 50. Yeah. That makes me feel great. I mean, I really do love my job because I know that I'm actually doing good work. And one of the reasons that I think it's fun to work with you guys is because, you've got your shit together, like you're a legit company. I mean, I work with a lot of roofers, and, they're all different.
So I know what you're saying. I'll tell you a story. So my background is, I've been in the B2B world for most of my adult life. Sales management, operations management. My specific wheelhouse was expansion, taking companies from, one location to 2 to 4, 8, whatever it is. Had a friend of mine who I'd known for 15, 20 years, started working for a roofing contractor that relocated from Georgia down here to Florida. And they were talking about expansion. When they mentioned that, he immediately thought of me. So he called me up, and we're on the phone for about a half hour. And then about a half hour in the call, I realized he's asking me to be a door-to-door canvasser. I said, Danny, are you asking me to be a door-to-door canvasser in residential neighborhoods? And you got to know Danny. He's like, yeah. I'm like, listen, buddy. And I really turned my nose up at him, to be honest with you. I said, I'm suit and tie. I work during the week. I don't work weekends. I take clients to go play golf. We go to Capitol Grill or Ruth Steakhouse. That's not me. Long story short, wound up calling. I lost my position, so I called them up and I entered the industry. And when I entered the industry, I realized there's a lot of non-business professionals, a lot of people that don't understand some real basic terms. Gross and net, should be 101, financing 101. And I worked for a guy. We were doing almost 40 roofs a week on the residential side, which is massive. And he goes, my plan, Ed, is when something's not going right, throw more people at it. I go, well, that doesn't work. So once I realized there were some people who don't understand the business side, they're real good at what they do, though, out in the field. I realized, well, if you can make some money at this, I should be able to just kill it. So not killing it yet, but we're on the right path. You don't just flip a switch and turn it on. But I 100% know what you're saying. I've met those same guys, and it's interesting sometimes.
Yeah, the business end of any industry is half the battle, and the performance side is the other half. But it's this weird paradox where even though each is it's half and half, if one of them's not in place, there is no other half. You know what I mean? Like it's both or nothing ultimately. Over enough time, you either have both or you won't have anything.
It'll eventually implode. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know roofers who know their craft and they know everything there is to know about roofing. They know exactly where the nail should go in the shingle so that there's less chance of it blowing off in a storm or something, and everything you could possibly want to know about roofing. But when it comes to knowing their numbers and understanding how to price their services based on the material cost and labor cost and how much it costs to keep their lights on and how much their printer ink costs, no idea. And so the profit isn't there. And ultimately, whether they have one job a week or 30 jobs a week, they're actually better off having one job a week, because then they make less mistakes, because when they have 30 but not the right profit coming in, there's no money to be made anyway. Right. And it's just like chicken with your head cut off, and it's like not a good recipe right there. So that's why it's fun working for a company like yours. So that's awesome. So yeah, you're on about right now you've got about a 15 to 20 lead pace going on per week. Yeah. Which is pretty strong. And I sent you an update earlier about how we added that second location in, but you haven't gotten a lead from there yet because of the way Facebook is kind of divvying up the ad exposure, and they're starting with the location you initially had. But I'm excited for that to get some traction. And then what else could we talk about? You were talking about how you've used some other digital marketing things in the past, but they haven't really worked that well. What else from a sales standpoint can you tell me that has really helped you guys in terms of strategy, like reaching the leads and talking to them and scheduling appointments?
So oddly enough, we've been getting leads into the office for years now. And my normal process on those was, if you were my sales rep, hey, Mike, here's a lead, go talk to Mrs. Smith on Main Street. And then you'd call. We had set up we'll call it a calling tree. They need to call them within 30 minutes of getting the lead. If they don't get them on the phone, they need to call them within another 30 minutes, another 30 minutes. They need to call them within 5 times in the first 2 days. After that, they can start calling once a day. If it goes to a week, then nothing's going to happen. And because there wasn't a huge volume there, it wasn't fresh on my mind. So one of the things we talked about, because of your volume, now all of a sudden I have this huge volume. And oddly enough, I think all but one of our appointments were set via text with the homeowner. I don't have a real understanding why that is. We're getting into psychology, and I really don't need to know why it is. But at my meeting today with my salespeople, I'm like, listen, when you get the lead, you call them. After you call them, you send them an email. After you email, you send them a text. And then we specifically talked about your idea, which was brilliant, which was sending them just a short little text video of them to keep on their phone and just say, hey, my name's Ed. I'm with Golden Hammer. And, here's who I am. Give me a call back. I would love to talk to you about your potential project. But we've had one of my people, because I tested this out with just 2 salespeople last week, so I could kind of control, different salespeople are going to have different closing percentages. So I wanted to keep it on our first week down to 2 people so I could kind of see results from one to the other, because the more variables you add into the equation, the more difficult the equation becomes. So I want to just have 2 salespeople and we could test this out. One of my salespeople, she had a 75% appointment rate, which is unbelievably good. And out of those, she has yet to talk to one of the homeowners. It's all been done via text. So now that allowed me to kind of come up with a new procedure for not just your leads, but leads that I'm getting from other sources, and saying, listen, the second you get the call, don't just call them, send them an email, send them a text. We shot videos, everybody this morning at the sales meeting shot a little 12-second, it was probably 13 seconds, name, company name, give us a call, talk about your project. And now they're sending those. So when they get it from the office, they can send that via the lead, not with a link to like YouTube or something like that, but they can just send a lead. So we're just now implementing that. I just have expanded this week to add all the other salespeople. And then we're going to leave things alone probably for about 3 weeks, kind of see where the results are. And then maybe in about a month, we'll start doing a little bit of split testing and test out some other things. The other thing that it's allowed me to do with this whole process is, normally if I gave you a lead, Mike, you couldn't get a hold of them in a week. At some point, we, during the sales meeting, say, hey, Mike, whatever happened to that Mrs. Smith on Main Street? I can never get a hold of them. All we were doing at that point in time is we were going in our system, we put it as a lost lead, and we wouldn't give it another thought. Because of the volume here, even if we only get a 50% appointment rate, well, that's another 50%. And we're not talking about 2 in a year. We're talking about, hundreds in a year. That made me rethink my process on those that we can't get a hold of. So we're setting up kind of like a constant contact type thing, where we set up some automation to go ahead and keep dripping on those people. Maybe they're just not ready yet. And even if we only capture another 10% of that on the back end, but 10% of hundreds is, we're talking about 30, 40, 50 projects that we could capture. Because of my volume before I was involved with you, it wasn't
worth it.
It wasn't worth my time to kind of go in and figure that stuff out. But now we're talking about 10 leads a week or 15 leads a week that we're not getting a hold of. 15 times 52 is a big number. I mean, 500-600 leads that we can't get a hold of. I need to try to get something of an understanding what that homeowner wants, whether it's, I put a new project on, I don't need you, that's fine. But at least now I know. Prior to this, we were just letting that stuff go the way of the dodo.
Yeah. It's at that volume, it's worth figuring out, because like you said, you're going to get a small percentage, and even a small percentage is a significant number. So that's really cool. And another thing that's really cool, and I don't know if we've talked about this yet or not, but we're definitely going to do this, is that we're going to set up, sort of as a phase 2 to your advertising, a way to automate the delivery of ads to those people who are, those dead leads that you would normally have just cast away. Basically, we can say, show this particular ad to try to revive that lead to these people on Facebook and Instagram anytime they log in.
Right.
So it's kind of like, it's like 100% open rate for an email almost. Every time they go on, there's Golden Hammer again with some sort of messaging. And for those people, who knows why they filled out a form and then refused to pick up the phone? Who knows? Maybe they are putting it off. Maybe they have a project that they know they need done, but for whatever reason, they don't feel like dealing with it. They don't feel like talking to anyone on the phone right now. They don't feel like having their roof replaced at the moment, but they know they need to have it done. And seeing your ads is just a constant reminder for them. It's almost like they had a to-do on their phone that they can keep seeing, and they'll eventually do it. So that's a good plan.
And another kudos to you. With my normal advertising, we're trying to identify people that have that are really looking. We're trying to drive them to our website because they were really forcefully looking for something, and that's how we identified them. I think your ad, yes, they've done something that kind of has that ad pop up, but it's more of an impulse thing versus the active doing thing. And here's what I mean by that. With my old marketing, which I'm still going to do because it brings in revenue, it brings in leads, those people are really looking for us. They don't know that they're looking for my company specifically, but they're looking someone in my industry. Well, maybe someone had a conversation with their wife and kind of talked about the roof, and they just, I wonder what something like that costs. They just did some little thing. Well, now they're on Facebook, and because of that, the commercial is now targeted to them, and they're maybe impulsively filling out the information, which is why maybe half is not, we're having a little problem getting the other half on the phone, which 50% is great. But and we're only 2 weeks into this, so I understand that this may not hold true, but it appears right now that we have less competition because of the way the ad was delivered to the homeowner and the way it kind of, whatever it is you do, what you do, it got someone to want to talk to us when they may not really be looking to talk to 15 different companies. My old programs that I still have running, those people are really actively looking for a roofer or a general contractor, and they're going to like 10 sites and putting their information in, and they're getting calls from 10 people. It appears that on the Facebook stuff that you and I are doing, that may not even be close to true. It may be kind of one of those reflective, oh, I'm checking out in the grocery store, there's a candy bar. I've got a little taste for some chocolate. Let me grab it real quick. And then they walked out of the store with no intention of buying a candy bar, but they did. With your advertising, it appears like they're not really actively looking, but they're asking us to call. It's a little bit of an impulse. And because of that impulse, they're not going, I need to go down to the next grocery store and buy me another candy bar because I want to see if I like that candy bar better than this one. When people are going to the store to buy candy, they're really looking at the candy and seeing which ones they want. Your advertising is more hitting those that they do want a candy bar. They just didn't realize they wanted a candy bar until they saw the ad and they go, yeah, let me go and grab one of these. So because of that, I'm hoping that we have a higher closing ratio versus my other lead sources. So not only is your volume higher, your cost is more appropriate per lead, but I'd be willing to bet we're also going to have a higher closing ratio. It's a shame that we have, you and I talked about diminishing returns. It's a shame that I couldn't just put money in and get 1 billion leads from you, but you can. A market will only handle so many.
1 billion leads. That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be insane.
You get 1 billion. You get 1 billion. It would be like it would be like an Oprah show. I think you're right. I think that.
Have your other clients said anything of that nature where it appears like your leads have less competition than their other sources? Is this something you've heard before?
Yes, but I've heard it more in the context of how my system compares to like using a Home Advisor or Angie's List, because Home Advisor and Angie's List and other lead selling services sell the lead to multiple contractors. So if you don't make the phone call in -4 seconds, they've already talked to 6 other contractors, and they usually just hate the fact that you're even calling in the first place. And if you even get to the estimate stage, you're one of 5 estimates. It's usually a race to the bottom. Margins go to nothing, and it's a terrible formula there for success. But I think you make a good point in that and I think the way to explain it best is just to make the comparison between Facebook and Google advertising. So they're different in one main way, and you basically said it. Google is used when someone is intentionally right then and there looking to get a question answered or a problem solved. Okay, they are going on Google to find a roofing contractor, right? So they're typing in roofing contractor near me or roofing contractor Florida or whatever they're typing in, and then Google is showing them ads for roofing contractors who are all bidding on showing up in the ad space, and they're showing some maps results and some organic results. A homeowner will typically click an ad or two or three, some of the stuff in the maps if they have good reviews, and then some organic stuff below, and they'll open up 3 to 5 to 10 tabs. They'll go to each website, and then they'll see if the website looks legit. If it does, they'll see if there are any reviews on there. Then they'll reach out and they'll talk to whoever picked up the phone, and then they'll schedule a meeting, and then they do it with the next tab and the next tab and the next tab on their computer. So they've got a few different meetings set up. They're going to get a few different, at least, maybe probably 5 or sometimes more estimates, because they're price shopping, they're quality shopping, they're value shopping, whatever the case may be. And so by the time you get to them, others have as well. It might as well be a lead that you purchased from Home Advisor or Angie's List.
Correct.
But it's because you're showing up to them, and it's not bad. It's still, there's value in it, but it's because you're showing up to them after they've begun their search. Facebook is interesting because you don't go on Facebook to find a roofing contractor. You go on Facebook to look at pictures of your kids and pictures of your grandkids and pictures of your family and your friends and whatever ex you're stalking and God knows what. And you're scrolling through your timeline or your newsfeed at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and ads show up every 4 posts or 5, whatever the algorithm is. And then you see something that catches your eye, and if it happens to be a roofing ad, you click on it, and then if it also happens to be before you've started your search for roofing contractors because you need a new roof, well, that contractor has beaten you to the punch with regard to your search for roofing contractors. So maybe you were planning on doing it this Saturday when you weren't working and you were home just hanging out. You say, I'll look for a roofing contractor this Saturday. But you're at work right now. You're taking a break. You're scrolling. You're home. Maybe you're going to the bathroom and you're scrolling, and boom, there it is. And you're like, you know what? I might as well just get in touch with these guys, see what they have to say before I do my official search on the weekend. Well, that's an opportunity for your company or whoever's advertising to delight the homeowner so much that they never even do that search on Saturday.
Correct.
And that's a huge thing. So it's kind of like the phone book versus TV advertising. Google is the phone book, Facebook is TV. It's just a lot more cost effective than TV.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And because of that, even if I could keep my lead cost the same, my closing contract cost should be with you considerably lower, which at the end of the day, I can't put food on the table with a lead. I can only put food on the table with a contract. I got to get ink on a piece of paper. And I think my contract cost per contract with you is going to be not just a little, I think it's going to be dramatically different. And that's going to take good, probably 3 to 6 months for us to really have a decent idea. I don't like having 3 contracts and go, oh, look, my contract cost me whatever it is. I don't want to throw numbers out because I don't have you and I talked about numbers, and I know I don't quite have a handle on them yet because we don't have enough data. We're too new into this.
Yeah.
You and I we're still dating, which means we're not getting upset at the way each other drinks a Coke or closes the car door or something trivial like that. But in 6 months, we're going to have a really good understanding on what the benefits of the relationship is. And right now, nothing I'm seeing is even sort of indicating that this is going to be a waste of my time, to be honest with you. So I'm always optimistically pessimistic, but I'm more optimistic than pessimistic with your program.
That's going to be my new tagline. I'm going to say Mignona Digital Marketing, almost certainly not a waste of your time. That's catchy. I like that.
100% could possibly be beneficial to you.
Right. I'm gonna copyright that as soon as I get off of this call. That's hilarious. Well, this was super interesting and helpful. Maybe we'll revisit after 3 to 6 months of working together, and you can give the update about the real numbers so that everyone can hear it. But this is awesome. Anything you want to add, or any questions I can answer?
You and I are still new in the relationship, so I'm guarded on going. If someone is talking with you, you sign up with Mike right this second. As long as you're not in my marketing, you don't compete with me. But every indication, I would have normally waited 3 to 6 months before you and I had this kind of conversation and given you some good feedback. But the results last week in a single week were triple what I was kind of thinking they might be, to be honest with you. And, so much so that it took me how long to double my budget on my ad spend? It took me 1 week.
Yeah.
Literally 1 week later, I said, you know what, go ahead and double it. Mm-hmm. And I think we definitely should, if we're going to do this and come back and do this in another 3, 4, 6 months, somewhere in there, and have a second conversation that you can use. But if the results stay in the direction that they are, I think a company in my industry in another market would be foolish to not have a real good conversation with you about helping them with the business, because as long as they can handle the business and they have the sales staff to manage the leads, as long as they got those two things in place, they would be foolish not to have a real conversation with you, is my opinion right now.
Well, thanks, Ed. I appreciate that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
All right,
cool, man. Well,
I'm going to go get back to work.
Sounds good.
You do the same. And if you got any updates, call me. If I have any updates, I'll let you know what's going on.
You can text me and call me whenever you want. All right. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Mike.
You got it. Thank you. Bye.